starting to feel like Formula One is I don't understand the rules.
The greatest Formula One champion of all time.
And Formula One is that it's like a traveling
circus of Spain
and adrenaline.
Except I am from Formula.
People know NASCAR, but people don't, because Formula One is like, it's a whole different thing.
Box and pick and firm, and welcome to the Redefined F1 show where we put American subtitles in sport of Formula One. I am your host, Frederick Kernigan. With me, as always, my co-host, Michael Zimmerman.
What's up?
Today, we're taking our talents to South Beach, and we're talking about all things Miami Grand Prix. What are your thoughts on the Miami GP as a whole, Timmy?
I thought the race was good. Everything else, no bueno. No good. No good. Was it 45 overtakes?
Yep, 45 overtakes as a whole.
It's like I thought the race was good. Whoever that guy doing the post-race interview, where did they find that man? Who is he? And why was he asking Max, oh, you box? You should do boxing. You know, it's like, what is going on? The police escort, cringe so bad.
I didn't see that part, so thankfully.
I didn't know what was going on. Like I was making our Instagram post and it's like in the background and I'm like, why are there police sirens going on? And I tune into it and it's like a police escort through the whole like Dolphin Stadium's Hard Rock Stadium.
Ew.
And they it took them like 5 minutes to get to the podium. Like they're like, are they lost? Like, do they know where they're going? So it was just so bad. All post-race stuff was really bad, but the race itself was good.
I think you and I share similar sentiments. The race start wasn't like a 10 out of 10 race start. I don't know what would qualify as a 10 out of 10 race start, but I would say that's like
Mick Schumacher first place.
You're not wrong.
10th to first.
But
that'd be crazy.
I think all things with all the things that had happened, it was a good race start if you're a Red Bull fan. Max jumping from third to first. You had mentioned it. There was a really boring middle. It was kind of, I think I don't know if you've gone over the shotgun or riding shotgun footage, but I'm pretty sure you and I just talked through the whole middle part. So if you have boring friends, then yes, the race is boring all the way. But Timmy and I, we make each other laugh, so it's easier to watch.
Also, it was finally a race for us Americans during the day. So we had energy.
We weren't fighting sleep.
Yeah, so I understand the rest of the world. For the one race, they have to wake up early. And the whole season, yeah, they got bored. Yeah. But it's like, that's how we feel for literally all the other races. Because we're up at like 4 or 5 in the morning.
Imola was a struggle.
Imola was a struggle. It was hard to stay awake.
Yeah.
So I understand how people thought this race was boring. Because if you're waking up 5 in the morning, of course you're gonna go back to sleep.
It was very, very, very middle, and then it all just in a flick of a switch. It almost happened twice, I guess, but the second crash wasn't as big. Like Lando and Gasly's crash was a significant one, and then the stepdad and stepson crash later didn't end up like resulting in flags besides I think double wave yellows, but like as a whole they got through it pretty quickly. Yeah. So but the first crash really set things off, and that was the big domino that fell. But I think as a whole the race was going to be over or like outshined by the ridiculousness that came with the race. From everything beforehand, like people clowning the layout, people not clowning the layout, people clowning the location, people not clowning the location, and then people clowning the fake marina, the gatekeeping resentment from certain fans just about another race being in America. And then you have a very mixed emotion race for I guess a lot of fans. I've seen race ratings from 2 to 9, so it's all over the place. And then or after the race things, it's just ridiculous. Like you said, I don't know. I want to save it for my closing thoughts, but I guess I'll say it now. Who in their right mind gave this? It's like he has CTE. Like, you know how like you like boxers when they're talking, you're like, is he struggling? Yeah, hit the head one too many times, but he's a racer. But then he started talking about boxing, and I was like, it's making sense now. It's making sense. But it was, I don't know. All the European fans who hated this race because it was an American race, is their poster child for why this race sucks will be Willy T ribs, which is really unfortunate because he didn't ask for it. I don't know how he got the job. If they're handing it out, they should have called me. I would have done it for free. They'd be like, hey, we need someone to sound belligerent and go and interview racers after. I'm your guy. Be like, hey, Max, you did a good job punching out there. You punched pretty good. How do you feel about getting first? It's just ridiculous. It's I don't know. But anyways, before we get into a deep dive, what is your race rating?
I give it a 8 out of 10.
I also give it an 8 out of 10. If we're only looking at strictly the race, if we were to count everything else, it'd probably be like a 7 or maybe even a 6.5.
Embarrassment, 5 out of embarrassment. Because I was watching it and I'm going, this man is making us look bad.
So you know what was funny? He was also in the Prix race show.
Yes, and that was embarrassing too. That's why I was so surprised. They're like, you know what?
Let's give it back to him.
Let's give this man a mic.
Yeah.
He was whispering into the reporter's ear when she was interviewing him.
Yeah.
There's not even talking into the mic, literally just whispering in the reporter's ears.
Yeah, for those of you who didn't see it on F1 Live, there was I don't know her name. I got to learn it, but she was doing like trackside interviews or like track walk interviews, and she interviewed Willy T Ribs. And instead of speaking into the mic, because he's supposed to be speaking to us at home, he's like, nah, I'm about to shoot my shot and whisper sweet nothings into this woman's ear.
Hey, what you doing after this race?
And then you can see like her face just like, well, who is this man? I can smell what he ate for breakfast. Leave me alone. Then we gave him more screen time by giving him the post-race interviews.
That was really good. Here's a mic.
You know what was the best part of it though? We gave him even more screen time in the post-race show because the same girl went to go interview him about how the top 3 responded to his questions. So I feel like at that point they were just playing to the joke.
Oh my gosh.
That's why I texted you. I was like, who's giving this man so much screen time?
I guess there's no such thing as bad publicity. Chuck or Charles or whatever it is that guy name is.
When he started calling him Chuck, I was like, oh God, please, European, turn off your TV. Please
go back to sleep.
Please go back to sleep. I think we should chill on the Willy T Rib slander before he comes and whisper in our ear. Well, we're going to move on to the next segment, a 3-piece prediction segment. Timmy had mentioned this off screen, but finally the tie has broken. I have taken a slight 1-point lead because this week I hit on 2 and he only 1. I'll start off with the one that I missed was both McLarens make Q3. I said in the preview, if Danny Ricciardo fails me, I'm not doing a McLaren prediction again. So no more McLaren predictions for the rest of the season. The 2 that I did hit on was Bottas getting points. He scared me for a little bit. And then the final one that I hit on was George beat Hamilton. That one scared me all the way till the end. Because
somehow pulled it off.
Qualifying, I was like, yeesh.
Yeah, seriously.
This is looking like a tough prediction. And then midway through the race, I completely forgot about him. And then he comes on radio. How about we just wait till safety car? And I was like, huh, George.
Why don't I just 5-head this race?
Yeah. I like the things you're talking here, Georgie. And then, at the end, he still be the point. So I have the lead going into the next race week.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I only went 1 for 3. The 2 I missed on was Schumacher making Q3. Broke my heart. He barely made Q2 though, so it didn't look good.
Yeah. So Timmy and I both had yeesh qualifying
Yeah,
predictions.
did not do well in qualifying predictions.
Nope.
And also one engine related DNF. Joe goes down as a mechanical issue, right?
Mechanical issue, so it's not specified. And like, I will give you the benefit of the doubt. If later they reveal what the problem is and it is engine related, I will give you the point.
Oh,
But if they leave it as technical and they don't specify, or if they do specify and it comes out, oh, it's just like a gearbox or whatever, then I won't give you the point. But I'll be a
all
fair
right.
man.
That's fair. That's fair. And then, fortunately, the one that did hit though was Carlos making podium. It was great to see that man not stuck in a beach trap and on the podium where he belongs. I feel every race.
Ferrari, once they saw the gravel traps or the lack of gravel traps, they're like, this is the one. This is the one, Carlos.
He did have me nervous when he crashed. I was like, oh no, Carlos. Not again.
Yeah, I think it was up to free practice 2. Like, our predictions were like looking good and bad at the same time. I'm like, I don't know whether to be like excited or worried.
Yeah.
I am now the leading host in our 3-piece predictions. On to our next segment. We're going to go through our 5 race highlights as always. We're going to start with the start like we do most times. And the big highlight being Max Verstappen jumping from 3rd to 1st. Other significant like losers or winners, both Mercs lost a decent amount of spots. I think George lost 2 or 3. And Lewis got swallowed up and also lost 2, I think. Charles held on to 1st and then proceeded to get overtaken later in the race, but he had a pretty decent start. Checo also had a okay start. He was the closest, I would say, coming out of the corner, because he was right on Carlos, to be honest. And then I guess the only other thing I can remember from the start was Lewis Hamilton almost taking Checo out. If you go and watch the replay, Lewis is locking up and his front wing just goes and sniffs Checo's tires and was like, the tires of a tire god, and then proceeded to turn away. I was like, thank you, Jesus.
Too much respect for the tire god.
Yeah. He's like,
sorry, sir. Sorry.
The
one thing I noticed was like there's different tire choices. So like for the Aston Martin and George Russell, who are kind of more in the back of the grid, they started on the hards, while everyone else up near the front started on the mediums.
Yeah, I think the consensus starting tire was the mediums. The softs were going way too quickly, and the hards took a while to warm up. But I saw the same thing too with George being out of place. His strat was just a hard tire, send it as long as possible. Same with the Aston Martin boys, like you had said.
So it was interesting. I think teams are still trying to figure out the tires. They're trying new strategies, trying to figure out what worked. How did Alex Albon go 50 laps on the hard tires? Like, what did that man do? Like,
only Alex Albon knows. And
yeah,
Sergio Perez.
Exactly. Teams are still trying to find out. Is Alex Albon just different, or are these hard tires like actually able to like withstand that many laps? If you can start on the hards and hope for a crash, a safety car, to then get you a quick pit onto the mediums or the softs. I mean, George Russell did that, and look what happened, and finished in 5th.
On to our next highlight. We have a tale of 2 Red Bulls. We have on one side of the coin, Max Verstappen, just being the golden child he is, taking one Ferrari from the jump, and then a few laps later taking the other Ferrari, and then just cruising to easy fastest lap and then a win. And then on the other side of the coin, Checo Perez is having an argument whether or not he's losing power or not. Checo was telling his engineer, I'm losing power. Engineer's like, you're a liar. And Checo's like, I'm a liar? Look at my data, fool. Look at my data.
Check my numbers. Here's the receipts, you bastard.
I thought even Timmy was joking about it during the races, like, this is foreshadowing. I was like, shut up. Shut your mouth. Don't say anything.
I do wonder why the engineer was questioning Checo. Like I get the numbers aren't like showing, but it's like it's the tire god. He knows when the tires are telling them that they're losing power.
I think anytime a driver goes and just starts saying negative things, engineers try to put the hold on, be like, hey, don't let the other teams know we're struggling. Speaking code.
You're being too loud.
Yeah. So I think that's what the engineer. Anytime I hear engineer like dismiss a driver, because every podcast or any like thing that I've heard with the engineer talking about a driver, they're like, yeah, we trust drivers up until a point, and then they have all the numbers. So
yeah.
For them to just straight up deny, Checo losing power, I saw that more as we're trying to keep it a secret.
You got to quiet down, Checo.
Yeah. And Checo's like, no.
Remember, this is code Apple. You just say code Apple. We know what's going on.
Yeah. And then Max was just like zooming off. And I'm pretty sure there was like a consensus. Let's not worry, Max. Let's not tell him. Let's just have him focus on him.
Yeah. I think if Checo doesn't lose that power, he gets onto the podium instead of Carlos.
I think they had even mentioned it during the race. His little engine like power down for a little bit caused, because I don't know if you remember, but Carlos had the bad pit stop.
Yeah, it caused him the position.
Yeah, so I think a play on the pit stop would have been like in the books if that, like you had said, the power stayed the whole time, but it didn't. On to our third highlight. We can take quite a big jump because, as we had mentioned in our race thoughts, the middle was pretty meh, but the one event that sparked a whole bunch of chaos was the Lando and Pierre Gasly crash. What are your thoughts on the crash? Whose fault do you think it is?
Whose fault? Oh, that's kind of hard to say. If I were to point at someone, it would be Gasly. I think he joined unsafely, which caused the crash to Norris. I didn't even realize. I didn't see anything. Like, how could you blame Norris on that?
Norris, I guess, offered up devil's advocate against him by saying that if Gasly was trying to, continue racing, then it was a racing incident, and Lando could have left more space, or Pierre could have left more space. But then Lando got the news that he was maybe retiring. And so that's what pissed Lando off and was like, that's a stupid move. If he's going to retire, then, clearly get out of the way, rather than kind of, because it's not like he rejoined. He was kind of like struggling. And then at the end was just kind of just floating in the middle of the track.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't too much on the right, too much on the left. And, the safe spot to be to let other drivers pass you in that corner. I don't know. I forget what corners it was in, but he should have been more over to the right, whereas he was on the racing line in the middle. So
yeah,
that's where the I guess animosity came from Lando's side. It was like, if that was because he didn't know how to retire correctly, then that's such a silly like error that caused this. So, but I agree. I think it's Gasly's fault. I don't think Lando had anything to do. Really, he was just, even the commentator said that it was a blind corner. And
yeah, Gasly has to get out of the way. He can't be there if he's going that slow.
Yeah, it's a racing incident that leans heavily towards Gasly. But then that ended up causing a lot of chaos, like I said before. I thought it was interesting how Lando just so happened to crash right at like one of the pickup spots.
Yeah, they had a crane like right there. They're like, all right, lit.
Like
we don't gotta move far.
He managed to somehow stay out of the wall in like a really tight section, managed to perfectly 360 forward and roll right into like the pickup zone. And I was like, this is just the American like sports writers being like, we got to set up the last 10 laps for
They're working overtime.
Yeah. They're like, we're not used to this Formula One stuff. We usually have to write for the NFL or the NBA.
What we do know is the middle does not matter.
No,
Just need a good beginning and end,
it's
and you just have to survive the middle.
like
That's what the
interviews.
race felt like.
Interview strategies for you folk out there trying to get jobs or whatnot. Either be the first person or the last person, because then you'll be the most memorable. If you're in the middle, you're kind of going to be like this race, just forgettable. This leads perfectly into the next highlight, was the restart. The restart, in my opinion, it was very impressive how the restart went from an immediate, like, all 20 cars or whatever, however many cars are left on the grid at that point, those many cars, into boom, 7 different fights immediately. Like Max and Charles just zoomed off. Then Checo and Carlos zoomed off a little slower and then had their own little fight. And then the Valtteri 2 Mercedes fight just zoomed off a little bit slower. And then they had their scrap. And then you had another fat scrap, but it was literally like immediate. Like it went from restart, all right, action.
Which is why I like Latifi crashing.
It just wasn't Latifi this time.
Yeah. The American riders are like, that's too obvious. Everyone sees that one coming.
Yeah.
We got to be different. Lando. No.
We're gonna do a little more heartache. Fan favorite.
Yeah. The restart was awesome because, yeah, like you said, you have those little packs of battles. Yeah. Just thinking about it, Valtteri versus the 2 Mercedes, that's just like,
that's perfect. I love that fight so much.
I just envision, like, because I'm a nerd, so like I just envision like the Star Wars battle, and like Valtteri's just like battling 2 Siths and just like holding his own, but then eventually got overtaken, unfortunately. But also the back midfield, also very exciting with the Haas and the Aston Martins and the AlphaTauri. So like the whole Alex Albon able to use the restart to get into the points, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
This season, the teams seem a lot closer and a lot more competitive, which is what I believe the direction they're hoping for.
I think the Max and Charles fight was didn't really support the reg changes as much as the other fights, because Max literally zoomed off and didn't really like even get close to being threatened. But then the Checo and Carlos, their scrap was like, they're more, even on this past Sunday. And so you saw the one big lunge, and then Checo didn't have enough laps to go for another one. Mm-hmm. And he also had this little engine thing earlier, but that's neither here or there. So, and then, you, like we had mentioned earlier, the Mercedes v Bottas fight, you had at one point, I think it was Valtteri leading, then the 2 Mercedes right behind him. That was a cool visual. And then you just see Valtteri go and touch a wall, because they're all racing a little too close, and he just got a little squirrely. Onto our last highlight, is actually, we're going to end on a somber note, because we saw,
play the sad music, the violins.
This is where Netflix just starts like getting hard on. They're like, oh, fake beef, even though like F1 fans know that Sebastian and Mick are not enemies. And that's what our 5th highlight is. It is the heartbreak for Sebastian and Mick Schumacher.
Definitely going to be an episode of 2 like stepfather, stepson to bitter enemies. And it's just going to show this crash. Look at this vicious attack.
No other supporting moment. Just this.
That's it.
The highlight we're talking about is Mick Schumacher. He and Seb were racing close for majority of the race. But however, after the restart, they had both of them just made it around Ocon, and Mick saw a gap, went for it. The gap maybe wasn't there, maybe was there, kind of just up for debate, and then ended up crashing into the side of Sebastian Vettel. Seb ended up they both finished the race, if I'm not mistaken. So it didn't hit rock bottom, is what I'm trying to say.
Just a love tap.
Yeah, just a love tap, but they did end up out of the points after being in the points, which is the biggest.
That's what broke my heart.
Yeah.
He was in P9.
It would have been great, because literally he and Seb were like basically like Ricky Bobbying each other, like the whole race. Not really, but they're in the frame of each other the whole race. And then they would have been in the frame together scoring points because it would have been Seb and then his protege, his hero's son, right underneath him scoring his first points. But then nope, they finished P14 and P15 or whatever they finished. It was
Schumacher got greedy.
yeah.
He got two. He was at 2 points. He's like, no, I want more.
You know what it is? I think Schumacher's move on Yuki earlier in the race just gave him the confidence. He's like, I'm built different, son. I ain't like these other young bucks.
You know my name. You know my name.
Yeah, but it ended up not working out too well. And
You are not your father.
I think they both had made comments on it. They know it was like a young mistake. He probably shouldn't have gone for it. And it is what it is. They're both friends at the end of the day, and the relationship isn't tarnished. I like the team radio they played. He's like, "What gap was that?" That's so. Fans out there, we've mentioned him on the show before, but our homie Tyler Dunn, that's exactly how he would have like reacted. He's like, "What gap is that?" Like real sarcastic, like. And so once he said that, I was like, "That's T Dud." Those were our 5 race highlights. We're going to move on to our American game comparison. This week, we ended up choosing the 2021 Las Vegas Raiders versus the Baltimore Ravens, week 1 of the NFL season. The only reason I chose this is because I watched the game live for some reason. I don't know why. I hate both teams, so I don't know why I would have been watching it.
Pretty sure it was Monday night.
Yes, but still, I don't know why I was watching it. I hate both teams, so there was no reason for me to watch it, but I watched it anyways. And it started off with 2 things that aren't even football related, just like how this Miami Grand Prix started off with a bunch of stuff that wasn't Formula One related. Started off with Steve Aoki DJing with Bruce Buffer bringing in this game, and he was like, "Are you ready for Monday Night Football?" Like he was announcing the UFC. And he's like, "In this corner, the Las Vegas Raiders." I was like, what is this? What is this opening?
This was the Raiders' first home game in
That-
Las Vegas, right?
It might have been, I think.
I think that's why it was like a show. It was their first home game, if I'm
Oh.
remembering correctly.
It was
And like in the new stadium in Las Vegas. So
It
that's why
was-
it was like so like
elaborate.
yeah,
Yeah.
like hey Bruce Buffer, you wanna make a couple $1,000s? And then Stevie Aoki's like, can
I
I
heard-
DJ for him?
Steve Aoki's like, "I already got a show over here. I could just
Yeah.
on my lunch break come over and DJ a quick song."
So yeah, I think this is like a perfect comparison. It's like the first at a new stadium or circuit, and then us Americans feel like we have to make it a grand show, grand opening. Look at all of these
Everything's got to be a
celebrities.
spectacle.
Yeah, exactly. That's how we do it. I
Mhm.
think so.
And then even moving on towards the game, I guess the first 3 quarters were, if you like football, like defensive football, you're going to like that game because it was a low scoring game. The Ravens are good defense team usually. Raiders had a good defense that year. But then the ending of the game, it ended up like points were scored in the 4th. Like they ran up relatively to the rest of the game. And then it got into overtime and the Raiders ended up winning. So just like
Max is the Raiders.
we're not saying that, dear God, no, I'm not comparing my baby boy to the hell on earth.
Raiders.
You shut your mouth. But yeah, that's our game comparison on the Miami Grand Prix, the 2021 Raiders v Ravens. On to our final segment. We like to close out our review shows with our award nominees. As always, we have 5 awards. The first award being the Dale, which is the driver of the day. We have 4 options. Max Verstappen, obviously, third to first, the win. He has to be a nominee. George Russell, going from P14, I believe, to P5, or just continuing his streak of P5 finishes. And then Albon going from P18 to P9. And then Ocon, one-upping him and going from P20 to P8. Who do you have as your Dale winner?
I am going with George Russell as my vote. I think it's hard to ignore Alex and Ocon, but I think George, like, getting into the top five, starting in, I think, what did you say, 14th or 12th, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
With the Mercedes car that was supposedly like not as good.
He started
still-
12th.
He started 12th, finishing in the top five. And this is like still the only driver that has finished in top five in every race. So he's showing he's a good driver. He's pretty good.
fair.
And he's doing the best that he can with the car that's supposedly not so well. Or is it just Hamilton?
So Timmy's giving it to George. I am giving it to Esteban Ocon. I think I agree wholeheartedly with everything you said. If Ocon didn't do what he did, George would have been my choice. I think Ocon going from not even getting laps in qualifying to all the way to P8 is crazy. It is nuts, especially when Fernando had his roller coaster of a day. And I think Ocon, he didn't get any laps with his, Parc Fermé car, because then once he chose not to go through qualifying, he couldn't get, FP4 before the actual race. And so everything that he drove in was basically new to him. So he had to learn and then also race. So hats off to Esteban Ocon.
So our next award is the Peyton Manning or the Omaha. Nominees are George Russell for gambling for a safety or virtual safety car when he was still on the hard tires. And then, like a madman, manifested a crash and it paid off. As we talked about earlier, he finished in top P5. Next, we have Alpine, who used the strategy to try to negate Alonso's time penalty. So they let Alonso go up in front and had Ocon slow the two drivers behind him. So then once the 5-second time penalty was applied, Alonso was still able to finish in P9. And then you have Aston Martin's making the decision to start on the hards and, like George Russell, hope for a safety car to get a quick pit stop. Who'd you vote for, Fred?
Alpine would have got it, but you had said that Fernando Alonso got 9. He actually didn't get 9. He got P11. So initially it did work, because then he got P9. You're right. After the first 5-second time penalty, but then they went and added another penalty after the fact, which knocked him out of the points. So
dang.
if he didn't get smacked with the second penalty, he would have won it. But since he did, them trying to negate it got negated. So by process,
like, we see what you're doing. No.
we were on to your games. We don't like it. But with process of elimination, I think George would win it for me, because he's just like, nah, I'm chilling, guys. Like, honestly, I'm all good. Let's just keep going.
Yeah, I second that. Now finding out that Alpine's strategy didn't actually work out, I think George, like Queen Gambit, seeing the chess pieces move.
He did with F1 cars.
I think he was like, Latifi's definitely gonna crash, and then Lando crashed. He's like, good enough.
Not my boy. I don't care. On to our third award, our meme of the weekend, Mark Sanchez. I'll say my two, then Timmy will say his two. My first one would be the Lando sacrifice. So there's a meme format where there's someone protecting a little child sleeping, and that was Lando Norris. He protected us from a boring race by crashing out. And then my second one, it is a Dexter's Laboratory meme. It's Mick looking at a picture of Seb saying, "I failed you."
Both are quality memes. The ones I went with were like the intelligent, or like the memes about George Russell's 5-head strategy play. And then also the memes about Checo losing power, having that argument with his engineer. Any memes like made about that, mint.
Mint. So you guys let us know who wins. Hopefully you guys choose me so I can get back to back because it felt good getting my first win. It felt like I was
sweet.
It felt like I was a meme lord for a day. Onto our Pete.
Pete. So unfortunately, we had to nominate Mick again.
I
for
think
the Pete.
this is the second time he's been nominated, and both times it just sucked. We don't like putting him there. We're Mick fans, by the way.
Obviously, but yeah. So you have Mick, you have Lando and Gasly for the crash, and Alonso for the time penalties. Who do you have, Fred?
For the Pete, I have Pierre Gasly. I think he had a tough day, just losing to cars that he shouldn't have lost to. That happened, and then also the crash, and then the DNF. So just compound factors.
Yeah, I'm also going to vote for Gasly simply because although the crash brought excitement to the race, that I feel like was unacceptable for like what he did, and it cost Lando his race. So that's why I vote for Gasly.
We got 2 Gasly votes. Our final award, the Shaq, the Big Body Award. We got four nominees. We got Sebastian Vettel for quality and quantity. He put a mint of a move on Nick Latifi, even though Crofty called him Lance Stroll the whole time it was happening. He was like, Stroll this, Stroll that. I'm like, Crofty, that is not Stroll. That is the GOAT, right? We have Seb for quality and quantity, Mick for quantity. I think he hits 5 or 6 overtakes, maybe even 7. We have Daniel Ricciardo for quality, the super late braking. Absolutely love to see the Honey Badger back in action. That was mint television right there. And then K-Mag. I went through the overtakes. Someone on Reddit has a list of every single overtake, and I counted every name. And Magnussen, I think, has 6 or 7. So Magnussen's up there for quantity. Who do you got?
I'm voting for Mr. Daniel Ricciardo.
Ooh.
That late break move was so smooth. Classic Danny Rick. Glad that the fans and people watching hopefully were able to see something that the reason why F1 fans love how he races so much. That move, I feel like, just embodies like how like why people enjoy and hope for his success,
Yes.
let alone like the type of person that he is, but like his driving style, that's just, it was so smooth like butter.
I think we both made that sound during the reaction.
So it was, we want more.
Yes.
we wish he could do it more consistently.
And that it doesn't even have to be more consistently, just do it from a higher position.
Yeah, true. Do it for more than P14.
Yeah, or whatever he is racing for.
But that's my vote.
That would have been my vote, because I agree. That move, chef's kiss. But Seb also had chef's kiss. I think there's only 2 other overtakes that I seen in that section, and one of them was on the start, so cars were bunched up, not really racing. So I don't really want to count that. And then also the George and Hamilton, like little, you go in front. No, I go in front. That happened at the same corner.
Yeah.
But Seb Vettel said, Nick Latifi, you're in my seat. You're in my position. I'm going to take that. So Seb Vettel got my big body. With all that being said, any closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts, race was good. Everything else, like I said, not so good.
Closing thoughts from myself. Once again, Tim and I share the same sentiment. The race was fine. Race did its job. The only real closing thought I have, scratch everything I just said, do not ever give Willy T Ribs a microphone again. Please, dear God, for any sport, not even boxing, do not mic this man up again.
I don't want to see that man on my TV ever again.
Never again. But you guys want to see us, so please subscribe. With all that being said, you guys have a good one.